Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of Purpose-Driven Marriage. It's a joy to be here today, even though it's been on the back of a lot of busy times this period. But guess what? We are here and we're here for you. Our vision and our goal is to help you align with the purpose of God for your marriage. In case you're just joining us, my name is Drs Samuel Ekundayo.
And I'm Blessing Ekundayo.
Yes, and this is Purpose-Driven Marriage, where we model kingdom marriage and we help you to align with the purpose of God for
your marriage.
One of the most common things that affect marriages and affect the longevity and effectiveness of marriage are traumas. And it is often very underestimated in our African culture, especially for those of us who hail from Africa, maybe some parts of Asia. Trauma isn't something that we'd often talk about. In fact, sometimes there is a stigma around talking about traumas, especially the kind of traumas which we are going to talk about today. And because of that, many people don't talk about it. Or should they be affected by it, they don't even think that they're affected by it. And because of that, when the effects start to show up, they can't trace it back to the roots, and they just keep treating the shoots, which means that the problems continue to linger. On this episode, we want to talk about those most common traumas that affect marriages and the things you must begin to do now, whether you're married or you're not married, to help you resolve those traumas and help you heal from them.
Yes. And when we talk about traumas, what exactly is trauma? I think it's important for us to also
define.
Yes. So
hear it from a medical doctor.
Yeah, so I'll say that trauma.
What do I know?
A lot. I'll say that trauma is very. You can say trauma is like a very distressing, event that has happened in your life, or very stressful events, very frightening events, very disturbing events, that has happened to a person, or you have experienced it, you've seen this happen, live and directly, like someone told you. And you find it difficult to cope with that stressful event. You find it difficult. You feel like the stressful event is out of your control. So that's what trauma is. Very distressing, very stressful, very disturbing, very frightening. It takes a toll on you emotionally and psychologically. And if you're not careful, it will begin to impact and affect negatively some important areas of your life, especially, for example, in marriage.
And this is why it has to be talked about. This is why it has to be dealt with. So we're going to dive into some most common traumas. And while we talk about each of them, we're also going to talk about some key solutions or panaceas to them, because this is very important. Again, this is not just for those who are married. This is for people. In fact, the earlier you know about this before you get married,
better for you.
Better. All right. If you are, good to see you. God bless you.
God bless you.
And those whoever is watching us live right now as well. All right. So the earlier you know about these traumas, the earlier you can. In fact, it's better to deal with it before you get married, if you can, than getting into marriage and down trying to deal with it. Right. Should we dive in?
Yes. So number one, it's what we've called childhood trauma, and some other people call it adverse childhood experiences, and this could involve, traumas that happen to you when you're a child, while you're still under 18. Things like abuse, and the abuse that can happen can be physical abuse. When people are, you have a parent or your caregiver or your guardian, whoever you lived with, any small thing, slap, beat, and those things, we think it is okay to do that to children, but we are traumatizing those children. We are raising children who are going to grow up to be bitter, to be full of anger and resentment, and at the time when that person is a child, you cannot, retaliate, you cannot revenge, you can't slap your parents back, but by the time that child grows up to become an adult, it will be an adult that seeks to take control, seeks to want to do their own back to people who have not hurt them, or people who are not responsible for the hurt that they experienced in childhood, so things like physical abuse, emotional abuse, calling your children horrible names. I've had had a patient tell me, you know, she was a teenager, but she said probably an adult at the time, you know, that when she was young, her parents used to really talk down at her, abuse her, call her names, you know, compare her to her other siblings. That's
traumatizing.
Yeah, that does something to you psychologically. You know, it crushes your self-esteem. You know, and at the end of the day, you could end up getting married to the wrong kind of person.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
because you think that I don't deserve the best. You know, so it's really traumatizing. The other kind of abuse is sexual abuse. You know, there are many children who are being sexually assaulted, sexually abused.
That reminds me of a movie we just saw recently, where there was this lady at the Winlows acted.
Yeah.
There's this lady that has been abused by her own father since I think she was maybe 7 or 8, and that went on for many years. Apparently, our father had also raped the mom. Right, and she was the product of that rape.
Wow.
You know how in some cultures they will just force anyone that impregnates somebody somebody to get married. So that was what they forced them to get married. So this guy too, after the child was born, started after like age 6, 7, when the child started developing, started molesting the child as well for many years. And by the time the lady got married, she did not want the husband to touch her at all.
Wow.
For many years. She couldn't voice it out, and by the time she voiced it out, it was just God that really had to help them save the marriage. So many people do not even know that this thing is going to impact them in marriage. Some people would say, wait till you marry. When you get married, everything will be resolved. In fact, she said it in the stuff. She said she thought that by the time she get married, everything will be resolved.
No, you married
things don't just resolve each other.
You married someone who is devilish. You know, even that woman already, she's traumatized, the wife.
Yeah.
You know, being raped and getting pregnant.
She's traumatized.
And she has experienced trauma.
Yeah, because every time the husband tried to touch her, she was like, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me.
Not the woman that done the child.
Oh, the mother.
The mother. Yes, the mother that was already raped, that bore that child. She's already experienced trauma. So in that marriage, she'll just be like a woman that has no voice.
Yeah, she didn't have a voice.
Exactly.
It was clear in that movie.
Yes, because she's gone through trauma, and I imagine apart from the sexual trauma that the guy is, the guy is channeling. There will be other, maybe he would have
other things like
yes. So it causes a ripple effect, you know, and you are building generational trauma.
Wow, if not handled.
Yes. So things are terrible. Other types of childhood trauma is domestic violence.
Yeah.
You know, child witnessing domestic violence. You know, I think it happened on Twitter, but it has screenshot those threads and posted on Facebook. How, you know, people were talking about how the adults now they were talking about how they had witnessed their parents
abuse each other.
Yes, you know, especially some of them are saying, especially when dad abusing mom. Although it happens vice versa, but the man abusing woman is the one that we hear about a lot. You know, and those adults, people who are not adults, were now saying they wished that their mom had left that marriage, but their mom kept saying they were staying in it for the children.
Wow.
Well, the children who were in that marriage were being traumatized. So the point that now some of them are so scared to get married.
Wow.
So we see what we are doing. You know, when we allow our children witness these horrible things, shouting, yelling, breaking bottles,
and we don't deal with it.
Exactly.
We don't deal with it early. You just think that it's just normal. You know, these things happen. You know, and all of those sort of things. Actually, in our culture, that's still something that always, that gets to me. Something has to be done. So, what can be done about childhood trauma?
Yeah, I think a lot can be done. You know, a lot can be done. Trauma is, so when we experience trauma, there's a way you would know, especially when you've been traumatized. Something that people experience, for example, is what we call post-traumatic stress disorder.
PTSD.
Yes, PTSD, which is also a mental illness, you know, and we don't talk about these things. So you don't even know that you experience PTSD.
PTSD has been thrown around like a joke.
Yeah, making me have PTSD.
Yeah, it's a serious thing, but people just throw it around as a joke.
It's actually a mental illness, you know, PTSD, and what people experience is things like, you know, they could begin to experience flashbacks, so you repeated memories of that trauma that they've had before, you know, nightmares. You know, some people they sleep and they're in their dream, they are
They are being abused again.
They
are being molested
exactly,
again.
or horrible things that have happened to them.
They are being
in the past.
rejected, neglected. All the things that they face in childhood is happening
again. Exactly. And some people become really hypervigilant. Like very scared that this thing is gonna happen again, or is this person wanted to?
They can't trust anyone around
exactly,
them. Especially if someone has been sexually molested, they may not be able to trust any man or any elderly man, or those kind of things.
Very scary. Some people
you said hypervigilant.
Yes, hyper, like extremely vigilant. Someone is coming somewhere, you're already thinking, oh my God, who's behind me? Who is, you even when it's nothing's really happening. You're so scared. You take extraordinary precaution because of the hurts that has happened to you in the past.
Wow, I remember what you're saying now reminded me of another movie that I saw of this lady. There was no issues in her marriage. No problem at all in her marriage. Everything was going okay.
Yeah.
She now went to go and see therapy. She seek therapy. The therapist now said, but everything is going well. And she said, she came because she's scared that something will soon go wrong. The therapist now said, why? That's when she now started to open up about, number one, childhood trauma. Because a stepfather abused her sexually and all of those sort of things like that. And, other relationship that she went to after that. So when she put all of those together, the therapist said, that she really, that she's grateful that she came because she has not dealt with any of those things before. No wonder she's now palpitating and afraid. In fact, it was a friend that I had to recommend her to therapy because she was expecting that something would go wrong. Like the husband would just leave her. The husband would just very, very strange hypervigilance.
Yeah, and she was always on the edge.
Yeah, and she was unnecessarily protecting herself from the things that has not happened.
Yes, because you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't get hurt again. So you form this like wall around you, which is also a coping mechanism for some people, but there's a symptom. So if you go and see a specialist, they will tell you, they'll ask you questions that could probably give you a pointer that you're experiencing PTSD. So one of the things like we've talked about is seeing a therapist.
Absolutely.
Seeing a therapist, and
please do not underestimate therapy.
Yes. So it's a psychologist, someone who could help you work that trauma out. And there are different techniques that they use for the therapy. One is called like EMDR for the PTSD. Eye desensitization, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So the therapist helps you work that therapy out through helping you to remember the
all
traumas.
The details of it and get it all out.
Yes, and there's a way that it connects with the movement of your eyes, such that even when and also programs your brain so that whenever you have those experiences again, it doesn't cause the same reaction when that happens all over again. So therapy is very, very important. And
create an emotionally safe space around you. Have friends that you can trust. All of those sort of things can then begin to gradually help you heal. All right, because of our time, let's move on.
I also want to just add, sorry, ask God to help you forgive your offenders.
That one is okay.
That's very important, because sometimes we bottle up that hurt, that pain. My parents did this to me, I will never forgive them. And you are the one that ends up living your life with the hurt. I mean, those parents might have even died. They've gone to their own, but don't allow the hurts or the pain or the abuse that someone has done to you to not affect your life, whereby you cannot now live your life fully, because you've chosen not to forgive.
And you still have a whole future ahead of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, very important. Number 2, most common trauma that affect marriages is infidelity. Infidelity has a way of affecting marriages because one spouse will then feel that they cannot trust again. They feel a sense of betrayal. They feel that they've been let down. And because of that, it's very, very hard for them to really go on in marriage peacefully, lovingly, blissfully, right? That when trust has been broken, it's hard to rebuild. Some people have this mindset of like, but you've been apologized to now, but I've
said sorry.
But I've said sorry and all of that. If not properly dealt with, and that's the way it's been dealt with, there's a way that could just carry on being traumatic, and traumatizing, such that the offender or the person whose trust has been broken or who feel betrayed worried, can't just seem to trust again.
Yeah.
And like the word hypervigilance that we mentioned the other time, the person now continues to just become hypervigilant, worried that it might rehappen again, all of those sort of things like that. And just becomes worse than how it was.
Yes, infidelity is terrible because it shatters you, it breaks you, it can break one completely, and sometimes we just deal with it by at least, we hide it, we cover up, we do everything, and you cannot, the person whose heart has been broken cannot seem to move on, move past that hurt or that trauma that has happened, and it's something that both of you need to talk about. Can I just say something also, that if you have a spouse that is cheating on you, because it can still be happening, some people are so should we call them the infidels now, are so heartless. It could be two-sided. So one person that has done something bad and you think and is remorseful, and then one person that has done something bad but is still doing it, and he or she is not remorseful. So if you
don't care.
Yes, I don't care. So if you are the one on the receiving end, please protect yourself while they are going about sharing and catching
STDs.
Yes, please protect yourself. We don't have anything to do with them sexually, so that you don't carry HIV. Very important. Or protect yourself. The other thing is, you that you're on the receiving end, please do not go about now trying to revenge. Like some people say, because he cheated on me, I'm going to go and cheat on him. You're carrying your own, you're just adding more trauma to your own life. And also, who knows, when you go and cheat on him or cheat on her, you go and carry HIV, carry hepatitis. So for your own good, do not try to also, I'm going to do my own back. Don't stoop so low. While you are very hot, get help.
Absolutely.
Get help. It's not something that you can work out by yourself. Apart from God help, praying for healing, praying for all of those things. Great. But get help. There are people who are specialists in this area. Yes, there are people that are called the infidelity recovery coach or experts. I know that
infidelity recovery experts.
Yes. I know people like Pastor Kingsley and Pastor Mildred Okonkwo. They have this coaching available. So
I think they are doing something around it.
So if you have been cheated on, your spouse has cheated on you, you're struggling to go past it, or you're even the person who has cheated, and you are feeling really horrible, feeling bad, feeling all of those things, and you can't seem to forgive yourself for what you did, or move on, and it's terribly impacting your marriage negatively. Where it's not like you're now like flatmates in the house. There's a big elephant in the room, but nobody's talking about this elephant. So it's important that you also go and seek help. Get therapy. When we say seek help, get therapy. Yes. Pray, speak to the Holy Spirit about it. Those who are born again, speak to the Holy Spirit about it. All right. It's very important. Speak to pastors, mentors that you can trust, because some of these things, they thrive in secrecy. They thrive when you don't talk about it. They just get worse and worse and worse. And I have the human mind is very fragile. Right? While everything will seem normal on the outside, something is creeping into your mind that is what am I looking for now? That could just spiral into depression one day. All of a sudden, that person has entered into it's like they cross over the other side into depression, and it can just get worse. So the earlier you get help, you seek therapy, the earlier it is. Also, if you're with a spouse who has changed, who is remorseful and all of that, then there must be intentional, maybe through accountability. We're working on rebuilding trust through transparency, through spiritual help, intimacy with God. Both of you are together, working it out to ensure that you rebuild that home, in a godly way. Very, very important. Otherwise, it could just spiral into all kinds of things that could just grow worse and worse. And some people think, I just wanted to add this. Some people think that changing partners is the solution to infidelity trauma. No, changing partners is
not the solution. Is not the solution. The solution is therapy, dealing with it first before you go and change partners. Because I promise you,
don't carry over that trauma also to another.
There are people carry over. Yeah, there are people carry over trauma.
So help yourself.
Yeah.
Help yourself.
Yeah.
The other thing is if a spouse who has cheated, needs to now. You talked about accountability and transparency. So that it takes 1 second to break down trusts, but it could take a lifetime to rebuild that trust. Yes.
It takes 1 second to break trust. It take a whole lifetime to rebuild.
Yes. So you've got to also not expect the person to just change and forgive you and just act like back to normal all of a sudden. No, it doesn't work that way. It means that you, as the person who cheated, has to now become intentional. You have to be committed to being very plain and open so that you can rebuild that trust that has been lost. For example, you could say you're going somewhere and do a video call, and call your wife. I'm here or this way. That way you are rebuilding trust with her. You're in a meeting, you give her a phone call. She begins to trust that he's where he says he is. Yeah. You stop locking your password. There's no password on your phone. Yeah. So anytime she's got access to it,
there is, she knows what she knows.
Yeah, exactly. And vice versa. I know we are saying he, but we can also it's also she.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you just start doing things, little things that help to build that trust.
That shows
gradually.
you are committed to rebuilding that trust.
Exactly. And with time, no pressure, but with time, she or he will begin to trust you again. But don't just keep doing things like, this is how I am. No. It's not going to work.
I've heard about some that, the person who cheated was just not remorseful. They just feel like the other person should snap out of it, or they feel like, it's normal. People do it, or they just say, I'm sorry, and that's all. They are not working to rebuild the trust. The other person is left bare. The other person is left, or there is this kind of still a kind of connection with the person that they cheated with, such that this other person is left at limbo, just like, not knowing what's going to be his or her own fate, just waiting for whatever might transpire, between
you start hearing horrible things like, I think I'm now in love with that person. Like, that's just so irritating.
Those kind of things can be very traumatizing for the other person.
Exactly.
And if not properly dealt with, can translate very strongly into marriage or subsequent relationships.
Yeah.
Very important. Number 3.
Let's move on.
This one is not often talked about very, very well, but it's a big trauma that affects marriages.
Yes. So number 3, loss or grief. This one is very, very deep. And there are many times that we experience those kind of things in marriage. For example, if one loses a parent, a parent that you're really close to, that can really shatter one. Or if one has like a miscarriage, that can, especially when you know that you've been trusting God for that child, and then all of a sudden you get pregnant, you're happy, and then a few weeks you realize, oh gosh, you lost this pregnancy. That is traumatizing. It's a big blow, and it can affect you, as a person, and it can affect your marriage. It could also be that you just received a bad news, that has to do with your own health, so like a terminal illness, God forbid, but like one gets a report from a doctor that one has cancer, for example, or one has a terrible illness, an illness that has no no cure. That is a blow, and one begins to experience grief, and people grieve differently. There is no this is a good way to grieve, or this is a bad. No, people grieve differently, and I don't know if we need to talk about the 5 stages of grief, but sometimes some people just first of all be in denial, like, no, this it did not happen. No, it did not happen. They did not die. They're coming back.
They're coming back.
You start having, I'm healed. I cannot have cancer. Never. No, it cannot be me. And you start denying. What is actually really happening in real life. At the point, some people now begin to experience anger, anger about, how could I have this terminal illness, like, where is God? Like, God I served for like, and God will not allow this to happen to me, or they lose their parents. Like, if there was really God, my parents would not have died. You start, or that child would not have died. You start.
Some people just stop completely going to church, stop having a relationship with God.
Yes. Or anger towards so many, and those things can impact your marriage negatively.
Very well. Yeah.
Or the point where people now begin to bargain. If only I had maybe served God more, maybe this wouldn't have happened to me. Or maybe if I'd had more time for my parents,
or if I had more time with them.
Or if I was
start to blame themselves, right?
And start bargaining, like, maybe if this had happened, maybe this wouldn't have, that thing wouldn't have happened. To the point where sometimes they could fall into depression. Like, after this has happened, I mean, maybe life is no longer worth living. Maybe just lose hope. That any good thing can still happen to them. Maybe this child was their life, or this spouse was their life, or this job was their, or this parent was their life. Or this life, the good health was their. Now that they now have this terminal illness, they can no longer live life. What's the point? So some people now fall into depression, and for some other people, they could come to a stage where they now accept that, okay, this is what it is. I've lost this good friend, or I've lost this parent, and they start saying things like, at least I thank God for the good memories that we shared together, the time that we had together. I thank God for the life that I lived. I thank God because at the end of the day, I'm still going to go to heaven. So they get to a point where they now accepted
that
it.
Happened,
And the reality, for if you're watching me and maybe you could be experiencing grief, the reality is that it's not like you have to go stage by stage. For some people, it happens at different, like number one can happen, like number three can be the first to happen, or there is no, it doesn't go in a chronological order that, but it's just whichever stage you are in that grief, you can identify it and get help.
And there are one of the things that we've not mentioned over the last few traumas that we've mentioned is it's important to be in a community that supports you. Our sister is watching. Portia is there.
Oh,
bless you.
bless
we appreciate you too, sis. An importance of a community that can support you. So whether you feel you have childhood trauma, or you've gone through infidelity trauma, or you've gone through loss or grief that we're talking about now, it's important to have a strong community of people, of believers. Don't let me just say people. Right, of believers who support you, who get you, who understand what you're going through and are committed to supporting you. They're committed to staying on with you, to holding you accountable, to loving you the way you are.
To affirming you, to validating you,
to remind you of God's love, to remind you of your true identity. Because many people underestimate the importance of a community. In fact, this kind of things happen. Some people say, I will no longer go to church, because they feel like God has let them down. That's the worst time to stop going to church, So if you're in a church environment where you're being judged, no one is really supporting you, you don't feel like you belong in a family, then absolutely pray to God to change church. All of us, we need, whether you're going through trauma or not, it's important that you have a strong, a community base.
Because you're built for relationships.
Where you can be truly supported throughout this process. I fear always for people who are going through trauma, like all of these things that we're talking about, and they don't have a strong community support, communal support. I personally fear for them. In fact, every time I have a first thing I'm always asking is, do you have a strong family support around you, like church support around you? Because if you don't, it's hard to go through these things alone.
It's tough. And the challenging thing about these people that are going through trauma is, a lot of times some people think that the best way to handle it is to isolate themselves, especially when one is depressed. You just feel like nobody cares, or nobody's gonna
or the stigma around it as well too.
How
would they know that a whole pastor is depressed, or a whole
is going through this challenging moment, and so we isolate ourselves, we keep quiet, we bottle it up, and that trauma continues to eat us deeply. And the truth of the matter is that some people say, but they suppress it or repress it, and they begin to do other things and think, okay, I'm going to forget it. No, the reality is, you think you are forgetting it, but it is showing up in areas of your
marriage,
life.
for instance.
It is showing up the way you are behaving. It, we develop what we call coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms to deal with it, to mask what we have experienced, to mask the pain that we are going through, but we are not dealing with it. And the reality is just a matter of time when the effect of that explode. It will show in different areas, the kind of choices that you make. So it's important that when you're going through traumatic experiences, have a good community around you, but also speak out. Speak up about it.
Some people have good communities around them, good people around them, but they don't speak out. They don't speak out. They feel like, I can deal with this alone. I'm strong enough to deal with it. And then it gets worse and worse and worse. When you mentioned the coping mechanism as a way of dealing with it, reminds me of another movie that
too many movies.
I think it's actually that particular movie, the other one. No, these things just flash and then they are interpreted. It was a lady who the husband does not listen to her at all. She doesn't feel listened to. She doesn't feel heard. So every time she's trying to speak to her husband, the husband is either working on his laptop or immediately just pick one on that call, and whatever she was saying would just be left hanging. Guess what? She now developed a coping mechanism of always being on her phone. So she felt like the phone, was the comfort, and all of that. So even when the husband now would have time she's so now that's her coping mechanism. So she too cannot listen to anything anymore because
that's why she's now
and things just get worse and worse and worse.
And another coping mechanism, when you talked about phone, which could also have gone to become like an addiction to phone. It could become an addiction. Some people cope also with other forms of addiction.
Wow. So addiction, it becomes a way of coping.
Yes. So, but we call it like a maladaptive coping mechanism. So it's a wrong way. It's something that people have now developed, but it is causing even more harm to them than good. Wow. So other forms, like for example, substances like alcohol, all of those,
pornography.
Yes, all of those things. It's a way of distracting themselves or trying to forget. Drink away your sorrows.
But then it becomes worse.
Yes, but then they have now developed another mental illness. While trying to cope with something, you've developed something even worse. And it just keeps building up. So the best way to do it is get help. Don't try to, I can fight it on my own, I can do this. No. Get help. And for us Christians, we over spiritualize. God is great, but God can use people to also help you. God can use people to deliver you, to give you liberty.
Yes. People can help you process the grief. I think that's some people don't process. Unprocessed grief, unprocessed loss, they are not good for your health. They are not good for your marriage. They are not good for your future. Allow time to process your grief, to process your losses, so that they are adequately and amicably dealt with in such a way that you are able to then live on peacefully, peaceably, in the words of King James Version, after. Very, very important. All right, let's go to number 4. Before we go to number 4, just say pray for the comfort of the Holy Spirit. The Bible says it's our comforter. It's our comforter. So when you're going through grief, the Holy Spirit is always there to comfort you. Pray for that, and talk about what you're experiencing also. As a family, as a couple. I just want to say, when people have lost like a parent, those children, if you have children, so the grandchildren, they also could be experiencing that grief. So talk about it. How are they feeling? How does it make them feel? For example, if that child was very close to the grandparents, that would also, but sometimes it doesn't. What do they know? They know a lot. Children know it's
a
not
lot.
Their direct parents, it's their grandparents.
Children know a lot. So talk about it. Just while we're talking about it also, we'll talk about that.
This is very powerful. This is very powerful. The reason why we're sharing this is some people do not even know that they're experiencing this trauma. Some people do not know. Even though their life is lived through it, but they don't know that they can't name it. And anything you can't name is almost difficult to solve. That's what then I've come to realize. If you can name something, at least you can then get the help and say, oh, this is what I am passing through. This is what I'm going through. But many people can't articulate what they are going through, but they know they are going through something. So fingers crossed, the way we are discussing this, the way we are talking about it is helping you to be able to articulate it, and be able to say, oh wow, I'm going through this, wow, this thing is really affecting me. Truly, I'm hypervigilant. Oh, is this the reason why I'm hypervigilant about, relationships, or around when I'm around men, or when I'm around women, or when I'm around church people? There are some people who have been traumatized by church members. Yeah, true. And because of that, they are now, God has helped them. Maybe they've relocated or something. They are now in a loving church community. But because of past church hurts, all right, we don't have time. Maybe one day we'll deal with that. Yeah. Because of past church hurts, they are now in a loving. People who now genuinely love them, but because of they are not able to position themselves to be loved.
Yeah, wow, that's deep. Yeah. That's deep. That's very deep. Yeah, well, while you were talking about that, one thing that also struck me is, I mean, we can't go through all the symptoms of PTSD to do how to diagnose it, but one coping mechanism that many people use for trauma is avoidance. They try to avoid anything that looks like the trauma that you've been through.
Similar to.
But you're not dealing with the trauma. You're only
just coping.
You're covering it up by avoiding. It's a coping mechanism. So someone has hurt you. Like the church has hurt you. You move away from that church or those people.
You say black people church, they are the ones that are very notorious. Let me go to a white people church.
Well, you've avoided that. But there's something that hurt or that trauma has done to you. Or some people that, I mean, we can give 100 million, yes, but whatever trauma it is that you have gone through, it's important that rather than just running away from anything that looks like it, deal with, because there's something it has done to you that you also need to unravel and deal with. So it's very important.
If you also notice that you're always saying something like men are always doing this, women are always doing this, check your trauma.
Yeah, where did you get that ideology
from? Where did you get that ideology? Yeah, some people believe that men always cheat.
Yeah.
Where did you get it from? Was one of your parents cheated on like that? Were some of your close friends cheated on repeatedly? That it's, what do you call that, secondary trauma, is it? It's not you that it happened to, but you've
someone else close to you.
Yes, and because of that, you are affected, you're hurt by it, and you are now carrying it on, and it's affecting your marriage. Because, of course, if you believe all men are like that, then all of a sudden you are, your own man, your own husband is okay. Nothing is wrong with him.
Yes, but it reminds me of a real life story of a woman who she's been to, while growing up, she experienced this kind of things, husband beating wife, horrible marriages. That was all that was around her, and as a result of that, she just had this belief in her that I'm not going to marry. Marriage is nonsense. She just started having this rubbish beliefs about marriage, about men, and by the time she eventually got married, in fact, first she even got married to the guy, she had told the guy, if you lay your hand on me, I will
kill you. That's what she said. She told him.
Yeah. And the man that she now married, was someone who was very gentle. He cannot hurt a fly. So she had married, fortunately for her, a good man.
Yeah.
But she still had that fear that this man can try me. This man want to hurt me. And she will now be behaving.
She was now the one that now became abusive.
Yes, emotionally. Yes.
To the man, emotionally.
Yes.
All right. Not allow sexual advances.
Yes. Not cook for him. Not cook for him. And she just do her own thing, her own life.
Because she's trying to.
Yes, she's responding to those traumatic experiences that she's had, the adverse childhood trauma that she's had in her life. She's now taking it out on a man who is completely innocent. Which was terrible. So if everybody has their limits, but that man, I think his limit was very limited. It was unlimited.
Yeah, that man really tried though, and they're still married today because eventually she now understood that she was traumatized and all of that.
But some people would then lose their marriage.
She would have lost her marriage a long time if she had somebody who was not patient and calm.
Exactly.
She would have lost it a long time.
So that's what trauma can actually do to us if we are not careful. And at the time when all of that was happening, she did not realize that she had actually experienced trauma, and that was a trauma response.
Yeah. Yeah. She didn't no
realize.
idea. Yeah.
So we need to be very, very careful, and pay attention to all of these things.
Yeah. Portia is saying the mindset that most people have like that is, I'll protect myself before you hurt me.
Yes.
But what they don't know is that they are hurting themselves and hurting the other person, because the adverse effect of that, I will protect myself before you hurt me, is that you are not able to release yourself to enjoy what God has given
Love,
to you.
Everything.
And some people think that life is unfair, but truly sometimes God is actually very, very merciful. He has like that bless you with a wonderful spouse.
Yes.
But the trauma that has been unprocessed, undealt with, can now make you lose everything completely.
Yes, it's just like that proverb that says, like, if you keep, if you stop doing good, because of what the devil or what someone has, and every person has done to you, now withdraw, build a wall around you. Even when an angel passes by, you will
miss the angel too.
Exactly. So it's important.
Should we talk about one more, and then I think we should do a part 2 of this, because it's deep.
I think we've got how many do you have more?
We have about 4 more.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
or we should stop
3
here
more.
and do the part 2 another time. I think we should stop here and do the part 2 another time.
Okay.
Today we've talked about 3 major traumas that are very powerful and have major adverse effects on marriage. They're very deep.
Very deep topic.
And we hope that many people will listen to this. Please do us a favor, share this with someone that you know right now, because I know a lot of people, or don't let me say a lot of people, I know some people who are dealing with some of these traumas and they have no idea. Some people have no idea. It's when you listen to them and you are a little bit knowledgeable about some of these things we're sharing, you realize, wow, that's trauma.
Yes, that is how narcissists are raised.
That's trauma.
Narcissistic people, a lot of times, they have gone through traumas in their lives that they don't even realize, that has made them to now lack empathy. Lack empathy. They don't have any sense of feeling, or their emotions have been lost, and they now grow up to be adults who now want to be in control. Emotionless. Yeah, they're doing something that is wrong.
They will oppress some people, and they don't care.
And they have no idea. So they're insightless about what they are doing, and you cannot help them. I mean, there's help, but
because they built up something that they don't even listen to anybody.
Yes, and for us to all the things we are saying, you've got to come to a point. I think you mentioned earlier to become self-aware. If you're not aware that this is how you are, this is what you are doing, this is the trauma I've experienced in my life, you would not even get to a point where you realize that you need help. And you cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. You cannot.
Or who does not know they need help.
Exactly.
That's the worst one. There's some people who believe, because actually we just touched on narcissism now, which is actually a trauma response. But they've come to believe that, they are so intelligent, they are so bold, they are so confident.
Yeah.
They can solve whatever problem that they have by themselves because of their, their confidence and all of that. And then you realize that even though God has surrounded them with help, He has put mentors, pastors, therapists,
someone giving them a good wife.
He gave them a good, wonderful wife. But for some reason, they are not able to see any of that.
The way they talk.
Yeah. They talk down on anyone, abuse anyone.
Like just talking anyhow about, it's just horrible.
I'm laughing, but it's not a funny matter at all, because many people are suffering under this weight. Until you know that you have a problem, it will be very hard to be able to even diagnose it. That's why it's hard to help people like that.
So true.
Very, very hard to help people like that. Because in fact, if you mention to them that they have a problem, you become their enemy.
In fact, you're the one that now has a problem. And they deal with you for saying that they have a problem. It's like, which kind of problem? You're the one that has a problem. They now manipulate everything.
They'll gaslight you. And at the end of the day, even you, if you're not careful, you start to think maybe you are the problem. Especially if you are their spouse and you're close to them, it can be.
I just remember, like, even in physical health, you only go and see a doctor, especially when you think and you believe that you are sick.
Yeah, when you feel something.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why a lot of people will not go and see the doctor because they don't feel that they are sick. Sometimes my husband
for many years
to drag him.
To go and
you don't wait till you are sick before you see a doctor. But so many people will, until there's sickness before they see a doctor. So also with mental health, if they do not realize that something is not right
mentally,
then they will not think that they need any
therapy.
Any therapy, any help at all. You are the one as a spouse that will now be suffering that
consequence.
Yes, because
antecedents
yes, you are receiving. You're the receiving end of it. And so while you are being traumatized, please get help for yourself.
Yeah.
And protect yourself too. We can't go. I think we should wrap it up.
We should absolutely wrap it up. Like Sister Curly is saying live, it's a great topic. It's so hard to deal with all of it, but we promise we'll do a part 2. We're also thinking about doing something with our parents. Our parents are here. Yes. We're going to work out something like that to really be able to talk about some really in-depth topics on marriage. So watch out for that episode as well when we do that. It'll probably not be on this chair because the 4 of us cannot fit on this chair.
I'll find a good place.
We'll find a way to make it happen. But we hope this has been a blessing to you. Like if I said, this session is very deep.
It's very deep.
We agree. Even we know. That's why we didn't want to rush the rest that we had.
Yeah, we have 3 more points. Or 4 more points. Four more. Yeah, we had 7 points.
Because they are different. And many people don't know these things. If you cannot identify it, you cannot deal with it. Like you said, if you don't feel sick, some people don't visit the doctor. So fingers crossed we're able to really spend some time on the rest and really be able to address them. And hopefully that can help somebody.
Yes.
Even the one we covered today, we didn't cover them.
We didn't go deep. But I mean, you cannot like exhaust the topic of trauma.
And I think we should do something on the parenting thing you did with the School of Purpose and Influence yesterday with all those questions. Maybe we'll collect all those questions again and be able
to talk about and address them.
Address some of those questions because they are deep questions too. I see some of them. All right. This is where we close the curtain on today's episode. We hope this has been a blessing to you. Literally, our vision is always to be a blessing to you. That's why we show up every single day, every single week. Who knows, maybe to be our job one day. We'll
love it. We'll love it. Yeah, just go and subscribe. I'll give it us lots of views. We'll retire.
It's possible.
It's possible. Yeah, it is possible.
All right. That's why we show up every single week to be a blessing to you on Purpose Driven Marriage podcast.
Appreciate people
yes, we're going to appreciate people who have watched us live right now. But do us a favor, please, if this has been a blessing to you in one way or the other, you heard something that was really helped you to name what you're going through or name what a friend is going through, then this is going to be a blessing to somebody else as well. So do us a favor, share this far and wide, share it in all those WhatsApp groups, that you belong to, so that somebody can just be saved. You could be saving a marriage, you could be saving a life. Right now, some people's trauma may have spiraled into depression. So it's good that you quickly, send it to them. They know, they are aware, and they can do something about it as soon as possible. All right, let's quickly appreciate those who have watched us live. If you're watching us live and you've left a comment, that's how we are going to know that you're here. But if you didn't leave a comment, there's no way in the world we are going to know.
Absolutely.
Unless we go and check one crystal ball somewhere. All right. But please do leave us a comment so that we can appreciate you. We want to appreciate our very own Ifeoluwa Shegbe. Thank you so much. God bless you. The Royal Calamos Company left a lot of comments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Our very own sister Portia, thank you very much.
God bless you, sis.
For watching. Sister Curly, all the way from the United States. Thank you very much for joining us today. Yeah, those are the people that have left us a comment that we can see that
thank
we're here.
You so much.
We had quite a lot of people join us, but we didn't see your comment, so we don't know that you're here. But thank you very much. You could also send us a message if you this has impacted you. Let us know. Send us a DM on any of our social media platforms. All right. Thank you very much. God bless you. By the way, follow us on Instagram. Purpose Driven Marriage. Purpose Driven Marriage. All right. See you. Take care.
Bye.